Welcome back, everybody, to the Shoot Fast podcast. I'm your host, Cody Axon, sitting down once again with Joel Park.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So, this week we are talking about stage design, things we like, things we don't like, and just what we're looking for at the matches we go to. So, what do you think about... What do you look for in general in matches as far as stage design?
I like a good test of skills and a balance to it. So, we talk about matches having a flavor. Sometimes the match will be really hosey, or it'll be, we call it No Shoot City. I like a match where...
Or chair sitting nationals. Or
there you go.
No Shoot nationals.
Yes.
If you're
just hating on everyone's match right now.
Yeah, well, just if your match has like a title to it where everybody else
unloaded start, section match or something.
Exactly.
So I like the Iowa section. I use them a lot as an example. That's probably one of my favorite matches we shoot every year because it has strong hand, it has weak hand typically. There's some hosey stuff, there's some distance stuff. Unfortunately, there was a memory stage. Mm-hmm. There's some short stages, some long stages. You get a good balance of everything. And I think for a match or a championship match, that's fair because if you are really strong at one thing but really weak at something else, it's going to show up.
Yeah. And I agree. The match, I think matches should be structured in a way where it's going to expose people's weaknesses. So I like seeing, if it's an area match, like I think if a match has 10 or more stages, so if it's an area match or a bigger section match, and especially if it's nationals, there should be at least one stage that has strong hand only or weak hand only shooting on it. Just because it's a thing that, like, very few people actually practice, and just having it in there, actually tests the skill and make sure that people are doing their homework and, still practicing that stuff, even though it's a relatively small part of the sport.
It doesn't have to be a shot you have to make with your weak hand only on a head box at 30 yards.
Yeah.
But just using that skill, going prone.
Just having it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going prone, I can do without it. Keep that out of way.
That and memory stages. Yeah, get rid of those.
Going prone, but we'll talk later about... We'll have some rant topics here on things we don't like in matches.
Making promises already.
Yeah, I am. So... as far as variety, there's a lot of different things that I like to see. I think we're both in agreement that as far as stage design, I think the most important thing to me is having a variety between the stages. So if there's one stage that is like a just Master Blaster Hose Fest, where it is like every target is crazy close and you're just going to hammer them and it's going to look awesome on video. So if you have one stage like that, I might be like, okay, it's kind of a lame stage.
It's fine,
but it's fine. Like if that's the one stage in the match that's like that, because that is part of USPSA. That is a skill that not everybody can do, and it's something that probably should be tested on some level at a match. So if you make a stage that, okay, this is going to be the hose fest stage, and it's going to be like 15 hit factor because everything is just so close and so easy, that's fine. I mean,
I like those. Do it for one stage.
For one stage, it's fine.
I think you should. Or the Iowa section normally has every year like a 6 reload 6 that call it Osceola table or something.
Yeah, it's like
a variation. Position. Yeah, I think it is. They do it like a variation every year. That's fun.
Yeah, you literally just stand at a table and shoot targets that are like contact distance, and then you shoot under the table at basically contact distance, and it's like a tradition. I don't know why, but it is. That's something they do every year.
And last year was like half targets. They were. You had to aim at them, but I like that just for a stage. It's not a whole match full of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I like seeing a variety of shot difficulty on stages. I like seeing a variety of hit factors. So yeah, like you have a stage that's maybe 10 hit factor or 12 hit factor for the match winner, and then you have other stages that are like 6 hit factor because maybe there's a lot of movement, or there's
the positions are really spread out.
Like every time you stop, you can only take 2 or 3 targets, and then you got to move again. So things like that, they drive the hit factor down. And just having a big variety, because you'll see some matches where like every hit factor on every stage is like 8, and to me, there's a lot of different ways you get to an 8 hit factor. Maybe it's a really short stage, and there's a lot of different times and points that can lead to an 8 hit factor, but to me, that still is kind of the same. There's something about that that's just the same. because the math changes the more the hit factor changes, and this doesn't really matter to most people. But I think the better you get, you're going to change your shooting style a little bit depending on what the hit factor is. So low hit factor stages
would mean what? If it was a low hit factor stage,
let's say like a 4 or a 5.
Do I need to go fast, or do I need to get points on a 4 hit factor stage? Then?
Well, you always need to go fast, and you always need to get points on every stage.
All right.
However,
fine, you win.
I mean,
let's say it was a scale, and I need to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
Which way would I go faster, and which way would I focus on more, maybe on points?
Yeah. So the higher the hit factor is, the less points matter, and the more speed matters. And the lower the hit factor is, the more the points matter, and the less the speed matters. And these are just general rules. Now that said, if you have a 5 hit factor stage and you run it 3 seconds faster than everybody else, and you still have reasonably good points, then you're probably going to win that stage. But
and the 10 hit factor stage doesn't mean Charlie Delta on every target's okay either.
Yeah, so
you're shooting reasonably.
So it's still a sliding scale for sure. But if you're gonna save an extra half a second by dropping a few extra points on a 10 hit factor stage, like, go for it. That is gonna help you, because I mean it's 10 hit factor stage is 10 points per second of shooting. So dropping 2 points for just go half a second faster, that's 100% worth it. Whereas on a 5 hit factor stage, the math just changes a lot, and you got to start really focusing more on how many alphas you're shooting. We're not going to completely change. It's a sliding scale. It's not, you're not going to completely forsake speed in search of as much accuracy as possible. But you gotta dial in the accuracy a little bit more. So I like seeing that stuff across different stages where you have different hit factors. It kind of changes up the shooting style a little bit, and it tests a bigger variety of skills. Another thing that I like is seeing shooting areas that are different. If every single stage is like run to a port, run to a port, run to a port, and it's like 3 steps between every port, and that's what every stage in the match is going to be, then you're probably shooting at PASA. And and that's, I mean, it just gets kind of boring. Like that's the same thing on every stage. And there's nothing wrong with that for one stage, because that is that's a valid way to design a stage. But once you start doing that on every one, then it's like, now this is just, it's the same as like shooting boxes, where you have to go to every spot and you got to shoot, and it gets boring. You got to mix it up.
The other reason I like a balanced match with every type of skill being tested is that's what's going to actually separate the competition. If you have, not to pick, or just to pick one type, a bunch of hosey stages where you're going to have to aim a lot, you're just going to draw and hammer some stuff, you're not going to see a lot of separation from the results. You could have everyone a 0.5% or 1% away, and then at that point it's not separating skills to decide who wins.
Yeah, I mean, so the best
it's luck at that point, I would say.
Yeah, the best shooters are gonna win pretty much no matter what. But like Joel's saying, if there's not a lot of difficulty on the stages, the best shooters are probably still going to win, but everybody below them is going to get a lot closer to them, and it's going to narrow the margins more. I remember, 2016, Ben Sager came and shot our section match, which was a pretty hosey. It was one of the hosier years that I've shot it. Like, it was pretty close open targets.
Low difficulty.
It was very low difficulty in terms of the shots. And so he came out and shot an awesome match, but he did have one stage where he had like a big malfunction, so that drove his score down. And there was nobody at our club who could challenge him. I mean, he was by far, like, he was going to win no matter what. I think I came in second place to him, and I was shot like 85% of him at the time, and so that was really good. Shooting 85% of the national champion was a really good score, a really good percentage to shoot. And then, like a month later at nationals, I think I shot like 82% of his winning score. Or I guess was that the year that he didn't win? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Either way, my percentage was high. It was higher than what it would be at a more difficult match, because it was
a low difficulty match.
A low difficulty match.
So it was easier for someone with all the skill levels competed and had roughly the same, closer to the same score. There was not a separation.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you want different skills tested on everything. You want different shapes of the stages. So if every single stage is a triangle where you run to 3 positions, it's going to get really lame when you do 10 stages like that. I like seeing stages where maybe one stage has a lot of running and one stage is like 3 steps between every position. I mean, just variety is a spice of life, and doing a lot of different stuff on the same match just kind of helps keep it interesting and keep things going. So now we're going to transition into things we don't like on stages, and Joel's about to go crazy here. So what's something you don't like to see on a stage?
We don't know I'm going to go crazy, but you just set me up to go crazy.
Well, you have to go crazy because I said you were going to.
I strongly dislike any type of gimmick. I do not think that my match finish should be decided by how well I can jump up and down on a trampoline while throwing a basketball into some bucket at the end of the range and then navigating through some moat. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get the idea. That stuff's stupid. Sorry to be a little harsh. And the thing I think to remember if you are stuck going to a match that has that type of flavor is that it's a distraction from shooting, but you're still shooting. So if you're going through a car wash full of noodles, I'm keeping this very anonymous at this point, so no one can understand what I'm talking about.
There's never been a stage like that at any match, for sure.
Yeah, so this is
a car wash of noodles.
completely anonymous. But if you're going through a stage like that, probably stupid, yeah, but it's just a distraction from shooting. So you're still got to keep both hands on the gun. You have to use the sights. You have to hit the target. So the fact that you're doing some goofy nonsense or, juggling something while you're doing the stage doesn't change the fact it's a shooting competition. Don't be distracted by that stuff, no matter how stupid it is.
Yeah, and like we were already saying, like the best shooters are still going to win. Like the best shooters are still going to be the best at that stuff. But it just adds just a weird, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like that.
I would make the argument it's unsafe also.
Yeah. When you have certain prop manipulations, it definitely increases the occurrence of DQs.
So I would be exceptionally, even if you lose a little bit of time. And I realize I'm picking on one match at this point, but there was a stage design where I voiced that I was unhappy about the start because I thought it favored right-handed shooters over left.
Which it did. It favored a lot.
See, so just for people that didn't shoot this match, you hold a rope that you had to have start in your hand, and you had to have 1 foot inside the fault line and 1 foot outside. So I had to be extra safe because there was an issue where you're holding this rope and it's going to be about waist, probably around your chest height and about in the middle of your body. So I was worried about sweeping myself,
and you were pulling on it. The tension on it was coming from your left side, for everybody.
Sorry, I should explain this better.
So as a right-handed shooter, all I had to do was I just extended my left arm out. I held onto the rope, and I had free movement to be able to pull on that rope while I draw. And because there was some stuff you had to shoot while kind of still holding onto the rope. So for a right-handed shooter, it was no big deal. You keep pulling on the rope, and you shoot with your right hand and your right hand only. Left-handed shooters,
I leaned exceptionally far out of the shooting area while still having a foot just barely inside, leaned out way farther than I needed to, so I could draw the gun and get the gun up and in front of me without hitting the goofy string I had to hold on to or getting any close to sweeping any part of my body, which would have been a DQ.
Yeah, because we had a left-handed friend who got DQ'd on that stage.
Yeah,
because that would have never happened if he was a right-handed shooter.
For sure.
So I definitely don't agree with any kind of stage where it's going to increase the amount of DQs based on what hand you use. It's just, I don't know.
I realize we're hating on a match right now, but just be exceptionally careful of that stuff. And for what I did it slow me down a little bit? Yeah. Would I have done that if I was right-handed? No. But it is what it is. Make sure you're exceptionally safe when you're doing that stuff. Even if it costs you a little bit of time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, I think we both agree prop manipulation is not something that we love on stages. The other problem I have with, depending on how it's set up, the USPSA rules are designed to do a certain thing of how the stages are scored. It's points divided by time. But once you start making up your own weird rules for prop manipulation, it can really manipulate the scoring in weird ways. So if you have to put a prop in a bucket before you shoot, or you can shoot while holding the prop, and you can choose whether or not you shoot strong hand only, or you can stuff it in your pants, something like that, and then shoot. It really penalizes people who make the wrong choice on that. You have to choose exactly what the right choice is. Otherwise, you could be, even if you shoot well, to your ability, and maybe you're a good shooter, you shoot everything exactly the way that you want to. but you made the wrong choice about how you were going to manipulate that prop, you could end up like getting penalized so much on your score, not in literal minus 10 penalties, but you could be 3 or 4 seconds off the pace, or you could drop a bunch of extra points because you shot strong hand only, and that was the wrong choice. I think weighting how you choose to handle a prop so heavily in your score isn't really what USPSA is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, who's the best shooter, who can shoot the fastest and most accurate, not who can do the math on, should I run all the way down and then drop the prop and then shoot everything backwards, or should I shoot strong hand, or do I like shove it in my pants, or do I hold it in my teeth, or do I stick it to my magnet on my belt? Like there's so many weird things you can do when it comes to prop manipulation, and depending on how the stage is written, it may or may not be legal. So like you're looking for loopholes in these weird rules that somebody made up for their stage at this one stage at this match, rather than using the established rule book that makes sense, that has like weight behind it and history behind it of what how the sport is supposed to be scored. That's when I have a problem with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've kept it very anonymous, and I agree completely.
Yeah, I kept it very anonymous about which stages the area 3 I didn't like.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I do not think your finish at the match should be determined by how well you can, throw a basketball while you're jumping over the moat, or like you said, you pick the wrong stage plan and you are way off the pace. Your match, you could literally make or break your match based on that. At I won't say a better or a worse match, but at other matches, you might have an option to run left or right or do a different type of port number, and if you might pick a different one, and you might be a second off, but choosing the wrong stage plan should not punish you to the point of being out of the running to be competitive.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is kind of cool that Ben Steger does in his classes, which is he'll run a stage, or at least he used to. He'll run a stage in like the best plan that he could think of, and see what the time is. And then he'll run the stage in like what's the worst possible plan he could think of, and often it's not that big of a difference. I mean, we really like to agonize in USPSA over all the small decisions of like, are you going to shoot this from there, all that. I mean, we did a full episode on it already that you guys have probably already heard. So we love to agonize over those small decisions, and I think there's like some comfort in thinking about those things, but you should recognize that those things don't actually matter that much, and pretty much no matter what you do on a stage, as long as it's not like a totally ridiculous plan, you're probably not going to get more than a second or two out of your stage plan. However, when you design a stage around a prop like this, those decisions become so important, and it becomes so overweighted in the scores that I don't like it. And I think we've kind of hammered that point home enough already. And I do just want to make one point of the reason why I'm upset about this is not because I myself have been specifically screwed over by this. I mean, I really haven't. I feel like most of these stage manipulations, or the prop manipulations, I usually make the right choice that most people are making, and I don't think I've really been screwed over by this for me as an individual.
No, and me neither. Other than the left-hand start we were talking about, that it was inconvenient, but did it really cost me anything major? No. But we've seen it happen to people.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair, and I don't think that's like, how do you practice for that? How do you get good at figuring out the math of what's going to? It's just, I don't know. I don't like the skill of that test. So,
and if you have the choice, I'm not saying you would choose what day to shoot based on this, but if there is the option, getting there the day before, watching someone that's good shoot that to see how they decided is a great option. Or if they're a little anxious and they're already posting videos on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, I watch those. Like Cody and I the night before the match, we're both just scrolling through Instagram and Facebook to see who's post videos of what, looking if it's updated a practice score, so that hopefully would give you a good idea of what is or is not a good idea.
While we're laying in the same bed, of course. One bed in the hotel room.
Big spoon, little spoon.
That's right. All right, so I think we've really hammered that topic enough about prop manipulation. We don't like it.
No.
Another thing I don't like, which we already kind of talked about earlier, is if you have a stage which is all exceedingly easy shots, that's okay for like one stage in a match. I still don't love it. There's ways to make really fast stages that aren't just like, let's hose 4 targets here, 4 targets here, 4 targets here, 4 targets here. I don't like that, and I think that's generally my problem with a hose fest type stage. Is a lot of times they just lack imagination.
It's choppy.
Yeah, there are ways to make really high hit factor stages that are really hosey stages that are still interesting, but it's when it's so simple where the whole point is we're just going to hose this as hard as possible, and that's that's the only point of the stage and we didn't make any effort to make it interesting at all, that's when I have a problem with it.
You staple 2 targets to every target stand and make sure they're both like fully available.
Yeah, and they're all 3 yards away. I mean, I just don't like that kind of stage design. Also, I mean, on the flip side, when you get stages where maybe everything's at like 25 yards, like if you made a stage where every target, I can think specifically of one match that I did not go to that I saw where every single target was a headshot, and I think you had to shoot 1 per target on every single target as a headshot. I think it was 32 rounds of headshots. I don't really like that kind of stage because
that's going to crush somebody also.
It's going to crush somebody, and that is going to have this like really crazy low hit factor that also USPSA is kind of I feel like USPSA is designed to be somewhere between like a like a 4 and like a 12 hit factor. Once you start getting outside of those ranges, like really weird things start happening with the scoring. If the high hit factor on a stage is like a 3 and
everyone else is finishing at the low to mid 2s.
Yeah, and it's a 160 point stage, then that person is going to pick up like 50, 60 points over everybody else on that stage. Whereas if it was like an 8 hit factor and people, messed up and shot a 5, they don't have such a, or a 6, like, it changes the math in such a way that it overly weights that one stage.
One stage is weighted more heavily, yes.
So I don't like to see the stages like that where the hit factor is super, super low because the shots are all so difficult, and where stages where the winner is the person who just didn't have a miss and everybody else had a miss. I don't think that's really the way to design a stage. I mean, if nobody can shoot it clean, then I think there's something wrong with that stage. But that's just me. Kind of another thing that we talked about with the easy shots was the stages where it's literally just shoot here, shoot there, and you're like, there's no options. It's just every single spot you have to go, every single spot you have to shoot the same targets everywhere, and there's not even an option, like an artificial option of you could shoot this target from there. Like you see those stages where you may as well just put shooting boxes and put 3 targets in front of it and say you have to shoot these 3 targets from this shooting box, and so on, for 3 or 4 different shooting boxes, because that's how the stage is structured, where there's no options to do anything but shoot these targets from here, there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Completely agree.
All right.
I probably made enough people angry by now, so that was all I had on my list of things that I hate. Now that the hate mail is stacking up and I'm getting unfriended at the moment.
Another thing I have here is token options. So you have stages that maybe aren't what I was just talking about, like they aren't per se shoot here, shoot here, shoot here. And maybe there is an option like, yeah, you could shoot this target from there, but like nobody's actually going to do that. If every single person is shooting the stage with the exact same stage plan across the entire match, across every division, and there's no other way to shoot it other than maybe it's a Virginia count stage and you told people you have to shoot it this way, and maybe it's like a strong hand weekend, you see those, and that's okay. But if it's a field course and there's no way to shoot it except for the one way that they decided on when they built the stage, I don't like it. And even though you put, well, yeah, you could shoot this target from here, but it doesn't make any sense and nobody's going to actually do that.
Right.
Like, you're still doing the same thing. That doesn't count.
That's not really a choice.
No. All right. Do you have anything more you want to rail on? We already, no. I did want to include hardcore memory stages here, but we already talked about that last week on our episode. So just know, neither of us like the really hardcore memory stages. We talked at length last week about.
Yeah, we can both make it through that. It's not that we can't do it. But you're measuring your ability to shoot. So you're measuring skills for shooting. Strong hand, weak hand, close, far, that kind of stuff. You're not
fast, accurate.
That. You're not measuring how well I can memorize something. Like you're playing a kid's card game where you have to flip over the memory, cards.
Yeah.
And you're not measuring how well I can, manipulate or run through some jungle gym. So,
what are some things that you like to see? Like when you see a stage, like, yep, this is a stage that I like.
I like a stage that looks fairly simple, but it could be made more difficult by rounding off the edges. So anyone of any skill can complete it relatively easily, but as you want to go faster and you want to shave off the corners, you can make it as difficult as you want to. So you have targets that it really makes sense where you could post up here and shoot them, or you could shoot them on the move, or what position you want to go to, and you wouldn't be penalized for picking the wrong one. So maybe, like the limited shooters will shoot it, or open will shoot it back from a little ways because they have a different capacity, whereas production guys were going to have to go to 10 anyway, so they'll run up here and hose these targets. So you can shoot it a variety of different ways. None of them are really wrong, and it just boils down to who shoots the best.
Yeah. And I agree. So a lot of options are good. I mean, options are definitely, and when I say options, they have to actually be viable options.
Yeah.
So, like I said, with, as far as token options, you see that a lot where people are like, well, there's options on this stage, but a lot of times there's just not. Like, yeah, you could do this, but it's like nobody's going to actually do that. Or if they do, they're doing it wrong.
Yeah. What else do you like?
I like seeing distance change up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked about with match design how, matches should have different difficulty stages. Well, I think that, every stage should have some element of different shot difficulty. I don't think the ideal way to make a stage is, every target 3 yards and that's it. If you want to make a hose fest stage, it can be a hose fest stage, that's fine, but like put something else in there that tests a different element. So maybe it is a stage where you got a whole bunch of targets really close and, you're going really fast, looks really cool, and then maybe at the very end you have to shoot a target at 15 yards, or there's some steel that, you're so amped up from shooting so fast that you're going to just throw shots at it. And that's going to end up driving your time down a bunch, and all that really cool fast shooting you did is going to be for nothing because you missed the steal so many times. That's the kind of stuff that I like to see. Is
for sure.
You see really a variety of stuff, and you see a variety of steel targets and paper targets. Maybe you have no shoots on some targets, but some targets are wide open. Just I like that every target that I shoot on the stage, or there's just that I have a variety of shooting modes throughout the stage. I don't want to be able to shoot the entire stage just target focused, like without even seeing anything, where I'm just pointing the gun just with my arms and that's the only thing I'm doing the entire stage. And I don't like stages where the entire time I gotta be super, aim super crazy hard on every single target because everything's so hard. I like a nice mix, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing I like to see is when you don't have really defined arrays. I don't like it when every position you go to, there's like 4 targets shoulder to shoulder, or maybe there's 2 targets on each target stand, and they're stacked on top of each other, and then they're right next to each other, and there's very clearly defined, like, this is an array, you're going to shoot all this stuff together, and then you move over here, you're going to shoot all this stuff together. So when you have targets more spread out, like, you come into a position, and there's a target far over on your left, and you shoot that one, and then you got to swing 90 degrees, and there's the next target you're going to shoot, and then you got to swing almost like another 90 degrees to shoot the target, and you're going to do that in a bunch of different positions. When you have things spread out and you make wide transitions in each spot, I think that keeps things interesting. That's one way of driving the hit factor down that isn't like making people run super far or making every shot very difficult, just by spreading things out more and not making it like so obvious of this is exactly what you're going to do here. You're going to shoot these 4 targets all together really fast, and then you're going to move on. I think that's cool, and I think it helps keep things interesting. You have anything else that you like?
That was about it.
You don't have anything else you like?
No.
All right, well, fine, then I'll keep going. I like, so to a point, there's an asterisk on this thing that I like, but I like stages with movers and activator sequences. But they can get carried away with them too. So when you have some sort of mover that's like, I don't know, if there's some stage where you put the Texas Star out and then you have like 3 swingers and a drop turner, and like you just get in a full carnival mode where you put every single thing you can think of, you pull it all out all at once on one stage, and then you end up with a dozen reshoots because the plate fell off the Star
and the stages get backed up because that one has a crazy reset time after the 38 round hoser stage. Yeah,
exactly. So right before that, you have the 40 round hose fast stage where everybody gets done with it in like 12 seconds, and then it's really fast to pace up, and then everybody shoots again. And then right after that, you have the stage with 6 activators you have to reset every single time, and half the time something doesn't get reset right, so you got to do it again. That is really bad from a match management perspective, and I don't think that's a great shooting challenge. Like, shooting moving targets is part of USPSA, and I like it. I like shooting moving targets. I like shooting swingers and drop turners and all that. But having some crazy stage where the new shooters like can't even do it because every single target is moving and they can't hit anything, I don't like it. It's too much. But I do like stages with like a really interesting activator sequence that has cool choices of like, okay, I'm going to shoot this steal, and am I going to shoot 3 targets before the activator reveals, or am I going to shoot 2? Or I like being able to make decisions like that where, you know, it rewards choosing more aggressive options, or maybe it rewards being more conservative, and you have to make those kinds of choices. Those are maybe the choices like we're talking about, which maybe the wrong choice will cost you half a second to a second. So it's not like a prop manipulation where it's going to cost you 10 seconds if you do it wrong. But, you know, there's small choices that can make a difference in the scores. Anything else you can think of on stage design that you like?
How do you feel about having a popper at, let's say, 30 or 40 yards? I could make the argument both ways. I like it because it's fun if it's towards the middle of the stage where you have to slow down, really aim. So I like the challenge. It is something I do in practice. But I also see the flip side of that where it's demoralizing for, you know, a newer shooter, you know, because we've all been there. We all start at the same place. My first gun was a Ruger P95. It was awesome. And I had a Phobos holster. So if you would have put that thing at 40 yards, I could have stood there and shot every magazine on my belt and still not hit that, not finish the stage, and been demoralized. So I like the challenge, but I don't. I guess maybe it's okay at championship type of matches and not so much at club matches. What do you think?
So I don't love steel targets that are super far out, mostly from a match management perspective, less than like a shooting perspective.
And you could substitute that for paper also if you wanted, so you'd shoot 2 paper and leave.
But that's exactly why I'm talking about steel, because it really penalizes the newer shooters a lot, which is going to happen. I mean, newer shooters, they're going to get penalties. There's going to be stuff in a match they can't do, and that's fine. But when that turns into a problem is when you put maybe, let's say, a mini popper at 50 yards. You put a mini popper at 50 yards. A lot of people don't understand that if you just take a miss, a lot of times you'll be better off than if you stand there for 20 seconds shooting at something.
I've told people that before, like shoot twice or shoot 3 times. If you can't hit it, leave it.
Yeah, like if there's a steel target at 50 yards and you know like it's going to take you all day to shoot that and you maybe still won't hit it, you might be better off you just throw a shot at it, and so you don't get a failure to engage penalty, and then you just move on and you don't take that huge time penalty of trying to take forever to shoot it, and you just take the penalty for the miss and you move on with your day. But you get people who don't know that, or maybe are too stubborn to do that, or whatever the case is, then they'll stand there all day and they will shoot through every mag on their belt to try and shoot that one target, and then they don't even finish the stage because they shot 60 rounds at one target and their stage time is like 120 seconds, and the whole squad had to stand there and watch it. And
it's demoralizing.
It's demoralizing.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing for that person. Like, I'm sure in their head, I mean, if somebody on my squad does that, I'm not going to like judge them for it. I mean,
you would.
I know. I'd just be like, oh, that sucks for them. Like,
I would start coaching at that point.
Yeah, and then
I hope I don't get a procedure as I'm yelling at them just to leave it.
Yeah, and then you would get a penalty for coaching. But no, so I hate seeing that scenario set up of like somebody is going to go and just like ruin their whole day, and they're going to like that's what they're going to think about when they leave the match is that target they couldn't hit at 40 yards or 50 yards of that they spent all day shooting at.
Do you like the idea of switching? Or sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know where you're going.
So that is why, if you are going to put targets at that distance, which I do like targets at long distance because I practice on it all the time. I think it's a fun challenge, and I think it's an interesting way to make difficult targets without having to throw no shoots and stuff all over them. Is you put targets out really far. I would much rather see that as a paper target because, you know, people are going to shoot however many shots at it. They're going to shoot 2 or 3, and they're not going to stand there and look for holes at 50 yards because most people can't see holes at 50 yards. And so they're gonna you know, fire a couple shots and they're gonna move on. And yeah, they'll probably end up with misses on that target, but they're still better off with misses on the target than they are just standing there shooting it all day. Or maybe they'll shoot like an edge delta and a miss, and that's fine. And you know, they'll get penalized for that. And the better shooters will be able to hit those targets in a reasonable amount of time, and you know, get decent points on them and all that. So it still creates that level of separation, but it doesn't. it doesn't, force that person to spend all day shooting at a steel target. It doesn't force the whole squad to get way backed up. Because then that's the other problem is from a match manager perspective is that stage will get really backed up and it makes the match run way longer than it needs to. And so I don't like saying it.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else you want to talk about on stage design, likes and dislikes?
No, I think that was good.
All right. So we've started to actually get some listener questions. Unfortunately, people don't format their questions in with a question mark, a sentence with a question mark at the end. So I can't just read the question off. But I did get a topic suggestion. Somebody wanted somebody wanted me to talk about, which they were asking about my process about switching from production to limited, and just generally switching guns. So you switch guns, but you switch in production, which we talked about a little bit. But what did that look like for you when you switched guns? You switched from a CZ Shadow,
yep,
which all the ballers were using like 3 years ago.
Yeah, Shadow 1 to a Tanfolio stock 2.
Yeah, because the kill switch, or what do they call it on cell phones? How they make them planned obsolescence is what it is.
Yeah.
Where they basically
forced updates.
Yeah, where they force updates where they nuke your phones and
Yeah.
make your phone battery start dying really fast and make your phone start running really slow.
Yeah.
They install that in CZs, where now the CZs, they don't work anymore. Like
you have to have a Shadow 2 now.
Yeah, if you try and shoot an SPO1, it just doesn't work. It shoots really slow because they installed the software on that gun, where now it doesn't work anymore. So, to combat that, Joel switched to a stock 2 because that's the new hotness that everybody's using.
Sure.
So anyway, what was your process? What did it look like when you switched guns? What was different?
Well, first thing I did was just, obviously, once you decide what gun you want, there's a lot of options. What sight you're going to put on it, what recoil spring weight you're going to do, all that kind of stuff. I did not reinvent the wheel on anything. For recoil spring, obviously the stock one that comes in it is way too heavy. It was like an 18-pound. So I asked 2 friends that are like super squad level dudes that shot a Tanfolio, said, hey, what recoil spring and what hammer spring should I run? They told me what they use, and I just bought that. For the recoil spring, I haven't even tested. They said, what rate bullet? They told me, put a 10, done. That's it. Haven't tried anything else. I bought 10 of them at one shop. For like reliability, obviously to make sure it works. For mainspring, I went heavier than I needed to, just to make sure I'd pop all the primers, because that can be a concern, with guns if you get the triggers too light. Other than that, I just did what everyone else does. The same, trigger jobs on sights. You might have an option for what width sight you have. But other than that, it's pretty much all going to be the same stuff that everyone else is using.
What did you do training-wise when you switched guns? Like, what was different in your training? Anything?
Nothing, really. And that was the other thing, when we're talking about just gear real quick, is that's a good time to look at magazine pouches or holsters. If you want to make a change, you're already changing guns. If you want to switch brands of mag pouches, just do whatever you want to get it done. And then once I did training, it was just gun handling type of stuff for the most part at the beginning. So just classifier type of stand shoots, draws, reloads, transitions, just the normal stuff. So it wasn't really working on movement, but as much as just manipulating the gun.
So you did focus a little bit more on your gun handling just because you're handling a different gun.
For sure.
But other than that, everything else is more or less the same?
Everything else is the same. And I spend a lot of time on those types of classifier type skills, but to give you an idea, by the second night, I already had draws for under a second. And that was what my time normally was, so I thought it was pretty easy to get back to that point. The frame's a little bit different. It's a little bit thicker than the CZ is. There's a little bit of changes, but for the most part, you're still drawing a gun, so that was the same.
And in fairness, you were switching between one gun to a clone of that gun that another company made.
Yours would be, a different experience.
Yeah.
For a similar type pistol, it wasn't that tough.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think it's actually even that different, like had you switched to a Glock or something like that. I mean, there would have been a couple of growing pains of it being a little bit different, different platform, and just the gun feels different, it points different. The trigger is quite a bit different, but you just work on...
reloads are a little bit tougher, for sure.
Yeah, so you work on your gun handling because it's going to be different because it's a different gun. But generally, all the other principles still apply.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that more because it was a new gun. It was something fun and different, so that was good. But the gear setup was all just what everyone else is doing. I just copied what everybody else is already doing, and it works. So
when I switched from shooting a CZ. Again, mine had that, the software installed where the gun stopped working right.
Well, no, he decided, he's like, hey, I can't hit these targets. I need something I don't have to aim anymore. what could I buy? And you saw limited, you thought, oh, I don't have to reload or aim anymore. I need to buy this.
You know what? You're not wrong.
I know.
So I wanted to switch to limited. It just appealed to me shooting major, because that was always kind of my strength in production. Was I could shoot pretty sporty times, and I could not shoot penalties pretty well, but I was just shooting too many points down on the target. So too many Charlies, too many Deltas, and I'm like, well, I could try and fix this problem. Or I could just switch divisions to one where I can shoot major, and that is less of an issue. The reality is, I probably still shoot way more alphas now than I used to.
For sure. Because you're at a better skill, though. That's not due to the gun.
No, it's not due to the gun at all. So the reality is, I probably still ended up having to go back and fix the same problem that I fixed by switching divisions. But that definitely did factor in. But probably the bigger thing for me was, I don't know, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try shooting against different people. I go to the same handful of matches most years. I tend to stick mostly to the Midwest. And I wanted to just shoot against different people. So that was one of the main things that appealed to me. And I felt like, switching between 9mm and 40, when you use a USPSA style limited gun with hand loads that are 170, 175 power factor, that sort of thing, it really doesn't feel that much different than shooting 9mm minor out of like a CZ. My 2011 that I shoot now shoots basically the same as any 9mm gun does. It just shoots a 40 caliber bullet.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't feel like it was going to be that big of a difference, and I wanted to try with the higher mag capacity. That seemed like fun to me. More chances to shoot on the move, more chance to blend positions without having to worry about reloads so much, and it was just a different challenge. So that was mostly why I switched. It was just the different challenge of shooting against different people. Different things are emphasized in limited. It's less about reloads. It's more about being able to shoot on the move, shoot your way in and out of positions, that sort of thing.
Did you think there was any difference as far as your training when you started to, live fire? Was there any difficulties as far as hitting targets that you had before or didn't have? Or was that pretty seamless, do you feel like?
So the gun itself, switching, so I switched from a CZ to a 2011. Originally it was an STI. And so switching to a single action only trigger was probably the biggest change. That was the most difficult. My draws, I'm pretty sure my best draws with my CZ, like on easy targets and really close stuff, is still better than my best draws with a single action only trigger, because I admittedly was really aggressive with that double action trigger. Like, I probably started pulling that thing like as soon as my hands came together. I was pulling it while it was basically probably still facing the ground. In reality, I'm not advocating that, but that's probably what I was actually doing. So switching to a single action only trigger, where you have to be more careful with it. You really can't put your finger on the trigger, especially with a USPSA style single action trigger, where most people run their trigger somewhere between like 1.5 to 3 pounds, somewhere in there. I would say that's pretty average for most people. If you're running your trigger that light on a single action only trigger that has only like a couple of millimeters of movement, you really can't get on that trigger early at all, unless you are very, very tuned into exactly the amount of pressure that's going to set that gun off. And that is something that I'm actually still developing and still working on. So not lighting one off early is kind of something I live in fear of still. I do not want to shoot myself in the leg. I would rather, be a little bit slower on my draw than I would, have to put a tourniquet on and hopefully not die.
Yeah, I don't like blood either, so I'd probably pass out and you'd be on your own.
Yeah, so I'm not afraid to, be a little bit slower on the draw, and that is what it is. But so that's probably the biggest difference, honestly, is the single action only trigger. I was already shooting a CZ with a double action single action trigger, so the single action trigger isn't really that much different weight wise or anything like that, but it does feel quite a bit different. I would say my training did change quite a bit in terms of I worked on my gun handling a lot for a long time. I purposely switched like when I had nothing coming up for a really long time. I got my first limited gun in like October after I was done with nationals, done with everything, and I wasn't going to shoot another match for like 6 months or more, because I knew it was going to take a while, and it did. I mean, so 2011, using 140 millimeter magazines, with 20 rounds in them is so much different than those tiny little 10-round CZ mags. So that was way different. I switched mag pouches like you were talking about because I was using bullets out for production, and then it just didn't really seem like it was going to work very well with the 2011 mag, so I switched to bullets forward. So that was a whole thing. Having to deal with a safety you got to click on and off and all that. So there was a lot of stuff that went into that, and it was way different. And I was bad. Like I was bad at that gun for a while. It wasn't like you were saying. It wasn't. I didn't have difficulty hitting targets or anything like that because it still was using a single action trigger and sights.
Yeah.
And all that stuff I'd already practiced. It was all the other stuff that was different. The draws, the reloads are way different because you got this mag well and these really long mags and like that are way heavier. So working through that stuff was the biggest thing. I would say if you're a person listening to this and you're considering switching divisions, I would make sure that you don't switch divisions unless you have a long time to train before whatever you're getting ready for. I would not, if you were training up for like single stack nationals in previous years, back when it was in April, I would not pick up a single stack gun for the first time hoping to do well at single stack nationals in March and train for 1 month, because that entire month is going to be just trying to figure out how to use the gun, and by the time you actually figure out how to use the gun, the match is probably going to already have come and gone. So
when you first switched, probably the majority of it was just dry fire, right? Just learning the manipulation, because that was what I experienced. Was the shooting was the same. I didn't really notice. Obviously, yours divisions is different.
Yeah.
But shooting was still shooting, so all I had to really do was just the gun handling stuff, and then after that, within, let's say, a month or so, you're back to where you were.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit longer, but...
Yeah, and it was definitely more than a month for me with the size of the change that I made. It took a while. I can't put an exact time period on it, but it definitely took a while. And so, I bet if I switched from production to open, it would be an even bigger difference.
For sure.
So I would just tell people, if you're going to switch divisions, give it plenty of time and... be ready to put more work in to basically get the same result for a while until eventually you get it figured out. So, and I would say the biggest strategy difference, I would say one of the very top things in my mind is the fact that Limit is really kind of a different game from production. Like I talked about, less emphasis on reloads, you got major scoring. You can the way you run stages, the way things look is different. And that's what I was looking for. So figuring that stuff out, that just kind of took experience and time and figuring out, how the scoring is different and all that. I really don't have any way of describing it other than just, give it time and do your best. And I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on that topic. Do you?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's all we have for this week. Make sure you guys subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, rate and review the show, all that stuff.
If you have any questions, feel free to send them to us.
Yes. So you can post them on our Facebook page, Instagram. We don't have that many people contacting us yet, so we don't have to streamline it that much. That might happen eventually. But pretty much if you just post on any of those things, one of us will see it and we'll look at whether or not it's something we're going to address on the show. And so far, pretty much everything somebody has sent to us, we've either addressed or made plans to address it. So
yeah,
send us your thoughts, and you might hear it on a later episode. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.